Alright, you guys, I am back at it again with another video, talking about my second favorite character in all of fiction. Like I said, second. I will probably do my first one, like I said, which is Spawn. Spawn is my favorite character. But Thor is definitely like a very close second. In fact, I would say they're interchangeable. But today, like I said, I have a really good video for you guys. It's a versus battle between him, actually two forms of this character that I'm very interested to talk about. So once you see the title, you know what this is about. Not even gonna waste your time, you guys. All right, so let's just go on ahead and get right into it. Okay, so old King Thor versus Rune King Thor. Okay, now these two characters all should be, at this point anyway, fairly well known. Of course, Rune King Thor coming out of the Ragnarok cycle during the first Marvel Civil War, when they had to get rid of both Thor and Hulk, because they thought that if either one was on the side, they was going to win. And of course, old King Thor taking on during the 2013 Thor God of Thunder series, which actually was, at this point, is pretty much, if you're a Thor fan, that's probably your favorite Thor comic book. You know what I'm saying? It was just so good. But but I will be comparing these two characters, and I can already tell a lot of you have already kind of made up your mind. But I'm hoping just to kind of put this fight just a little bit into perspective, okay? So just kind of give you guys a fair idea. So I'm gonna start it off with old King Thor from the Thor God of Thunder storyline, and even his own storyline, King Thor. So he was introduced back in 2013 during the Gore the God Butcher storyline. Oh God, like I said, practically like the absolute best Thor storyline. I mean, ooh, Lord have mercy. Bottom line is, old King Thor is basically what happens when Thor in the future, essentially, of course, he inherits the Odin Force, which he now calls Thor Force, and he is now the King of Asgard, which we did see at the end of Jason Aaron's War of Realms storyline, but which kind of piggybacks, or rather goes towards this. But either way, said this Thor, like I said, he inherited the Thor Force. Now, like I said, I call it the Thor Force, or rather, he called it Thor Force, but it's essentially just the Odin Force passed on to Thor. You know, Thor went through the process and achieved it. And as you know, the Odin Force it's extremely powerful. It's the reason why Odin, in fact, is so powerful, and it's even allowed for Thor to even damage people such as Gore the God Butcher, just with one blast, a very casual blast, by the way, of the Odin Force. So it is definitely a huge significant power boost, on top of which that same Thor, who at one point was completely inferior to Galactus, after wielding Odin Force longer than his own father did, and probably being, or not probably, but being more powerful and more experienced with it, was actually able to go toe-to-toe with Galactus, which we have seen Odin do before. But the way when Thor fought against Galactus, it was kind of, they were actually going back and forth, trading blows with one another, until Galactus decided to use more of his full power and kind of sent Thor away with one blast, which is still, you know what I'm saying, it's still impressive and puts him a little bit above Odin, considering when Odin fought Galactus, believe it or not, Odin literally, I mean, he used the entirety of the Odin Force, headbutted Galactus one time, and had to fall into the Odin sleep. So he basically, he did damage him greatly, which is why Thor is comparable to him, because Thor was also able to damage Galactus. But he was able to do this without having to go into the Odin sleep afterwards. Yes, granted, he did have to use the, Necro Sword to beat him, but that's not the point. Like I said, just the fact he was able to stand up to him. He then, of course, went on to fight against Old Man Logan with the Phoenix Force, okay? Like, with the Phoenix Force. And yet again, this is Thor, like I said, he was able to trade blows with him, and they were actually able to go toe-to-toe with one another. And if you know anything about the Phoenix Force is actually scalable to be above Galactus. Now, Wolverine was not seen as the perfect host like Jean Grey, but it was still the fact that he possessed the Phoenix Force power nonetheless. During their fight, they ended up getting interrupted by Doom. Doom was absolutely ridiculous. At this point, Doom had essentially reached the level, unbeknownst to even, I would say, before, when he even absorbed Galactus's cosmic power. He probably went above that. This Doom had the power of the Iron Fist. He was the Sorcerer Supreme. He possessed a Star Brand. He possessed the Ghost Rider. Like, he had every single power known to man, with the one exception. Like, just the one exception of probably possessing the power of Cosmic, on top of Doom's already vast knowledge and power of the mystical arts. Now, granted, neither one of them was actually able to damage them until, that is, Wolverine actually decided to give up the Phoenix Force to Thor. You know what I'm saying? Wolverine's last moments was like, okay, yeah, you might have been right. Saving the world was not the worst thing. To beat this guy, protect the world, here you go. Here is the Phoenix Force. So now you have basically old King Thor with the power of the Odin Force, plus the power of the Phoenix Force, all rolled up in one. And him and Doom had a fight that was stated for hundreds of years. So, yeah. Old King Thor is not to be trifled with. And like I said, you're talking about someone with vast, and I do mean vast amount of power. So when you actually use it in comparison, Old King Thor, or sorry, the Phoenix Force rather, which is more comparable, actually has a lot of feats really on its own, along with facing off against Doom, of course, who also had all of those powers, such as the Spirit of Vengeance or the Ghost Rider Zarathos and the Star Brand, most notably. Now, the reason this is important is because Johnny Blaze, as the Ghost Rider, was actually able to defeat Mephisto and take over and become the King of Hell in some of his recent storylines. And keep this in mind that he did this in his own realm. Mephisto is strongest within his own dimension. And this same Mephisto is so powerful. He is a Skyfather level being who was actually able, well, I'll say a little bit above them, considering he was actually able to stalemate a Galactus within his own realm. So, as we say, like I said, Galactus is clearly a high-level entity that is actually slightly above the Godfathers, including Odin. Well, not slightly, but he's more powerful than Odin and a lot of the Skyfathers. And Mephisto was able to still stalemate him. Johnny Blaze to defeat him. So the Spirit of Zarathos is extremely powerful to stand up to that. On top of which, Doom also possessed the Star Brand. Now, the Star Brand is really hard to talk about, actually, because the Star Brand essentially is kind of more of a plot device in a sense, where the Widow of the Star Brand has enough power to do what is necessary within the story. So, for example, the Star Brand has been limited to only being able to defeat people like the Hulk and Thor, but at other times it was able to defeat people such as a Beyonder during the Jonathan Hickman Avengers and New Avengers storyline, where Thor and Hyperion and all them were struggling to defeat them, and all of them got wiped out. Star Brand had enough power to self-destruct himself and kill one of the Beyonders that way. At the same time, like I said, it really whacks and wanes, but still the power of the Star Brand is extremely ridiculous nonetheless. So just keep that in mind, that Thor with the Phoenix Force actually had to withstand all of those powers combined into one body, on top of it being given to Doom, one of the most intellectual and actually one of the most powerful magical users in the Marvel Universe. Alright, so next we're going to cover Rune King Thor. Now, the reason why I did old King Thor first is just simply because he has a lot more fights that he goes on throughout his stories. Well, Rune King Thor really just has in the story maybe like 5 or 6 pages of his feats being shown, but that does not actually divulge any of the power that Thor actually possesses. Some of the abilities that he actually possesses when after obtaining the runes and the power of the Odin Force multiplied drastically, he actually had near omniscience, cosmic awareness, where basically, like I said, he was actually able to understand what was going on around everywhere in the universe, knowing where everything was, what was going on, something along the lines. You can kind of look at it like in Dragon Ball, like the way the Supreme Kais are able to see things from far away and observe and understand things from the time by using time ring and stuff. Yeah, Thor can just do that just whenever he wants to. No time ring, no vision. He just has that type of awareness. On top of which, Thor also, just by attaining his power, was so powerful during the whole story of Ragnarok, when Loki led so many forces to destroy Asgard. Thor just basically, as soon as he had it, just simply went through, no hammer, no nothing, just base power, just went through and obliterated all of Loki's forces, including one of those being the Mangog. Which, if you don't know about the Mangog is a very powerful entity filled with hatred, filled with so much hatred. He's kind of like the Doomsday of Marvel in a sense. And he is so powerful that even Odin, okay, the Skyfather Odin, the most known Skyfather, I would say, amongst Marvel fans, both casual and non, Odin is absolutely terrified of the Mangog. Okay, pretty much every time the Mangog shows up, the Mangog never really gets defeated by someone actually completely just obliterating him. It really usually comes into some form of trickery, such as like the last time during Jane Foster's run of Thor, when she just simply tied him and threw him into the sun. Okay, and that was like, okay, that's the end of Mangog right there. But the reason why that is so impressive, because you're talking about Odin, who is a, if you want to do proper scaling, really low to mid multiversal being. Some of his feats that he was able to do, as a matter of fact, to prove that he's in that at least multi-universal levels of feat, is he was actually able to nullify a fire that was going to completely destroy the World Tree, or the Yggdrasil Tree, which is actually stated to have, it's the holder of the 9 realms, or 9 different universes, on top of having stated, actually implied to be a infinite number of universes dwelling within its branches. Yes, fire spreads, but still the fact that he was able to nullify all of that power makes him have it into that multiversal levels of power. So in a sense, you could actually think of him kind of like a Beerus, in a simple sense. Another one that you could do is literally in his fight against Seth, they were actually destroying or they actually had enough power to destroy the actual universe. They were going to destroy the universe and all the dimensions and stuff that dwell within it. And they were doing this casually, actually at the very beginning of the fight. So, yeah. Okay. So, if anyone that wants to doubt that, yeah, that's just how powerful Odin himself is. And this is something that is actually scaled to Old King Thor as well. So, just remember that these two characters are more powerful than Odin himself. And this is actually the power that Odin possesses, and he still feared the Mangog. And Thor was able to casually beat him with no difficulty. The next great feat that Thor actually managed to do was Thor literally defeated the ones who sit above in shadow and destroyed the World Tree all in one single hit. Now this does take a little bit of explaining to do. Now the ones who sit above in shadow are basically seen as the gods above gods. Okay, the gods of gods basically. But the ones who sit above in shadow are basically beings who have been basically feasting on the Asgardian life force every single Ragnarok cycle for millennia. So keep this in mind, okay? So basically, to prove how powerful these guys would be, they have been feasting on characters like Odin, his life force energy, every single Ragnarok cycle for thousands and thousands of years, okay? And Odin also could not even defeat them. In fact, the only way he tried to was, that's why Thor was actually, one of the reasons why Thor was actually sent to Earth. So keep that in mind, that Odin himself actually paled in comparison to defeating one of them, and Thor managed to defeat all of the ones who sit above in shadow. So, and like I said, he also destroyed the Yggdrasil tree as well, putting him at that, at that high multiversal levels of power, or low to mid multiverse, sorry. But bottom line, he's a definitely multiversal threat. And like I said, he also defeated the ones to the above shadow, who would be leagues above Odin. And he was able to do this, like I said, by himself with just one swing of the hammer. So just keep that in mind when you're trying to discuss like exactly how powerful he is. Alright, you guys, so with all that information being presented, I'm sure the next question is, wow, so these two are really powerful. So who actually wins in a fight? Like, if they had to come to blows, for example, another God of Thunder thing where, Rune King Thor went to the future and had to fight against old King Thor with the Phoenix Force, like, how would that really go down? Now, I kept kind of going back and forth on it, really trying to figure out like exactly how would I do that. And the best way to look at it is actually to kind of pay attention to just a small detail anyway to the cosmic hierarchy. Now, like I said, Old King Thor essentially is what happens when you give Thor the Odin Force. putting him at the very least, you know what I'm saying, at Odin's level. And then, of course, because he had it for thousands of years more with more experience, you could actually kind of scale him to be actually above Odin, though not drastically, considering neither one of them, Old King Thor by himself anyway, still could not actually defeat Galactus. Galactus being, like I said, pretty much on the Skyfather level, top tier. He would be, like I said, above all of them, but still, even Galactus himself, as powerful as he is, would not be at that celestial level. He's more on a... Galactus has destroyed celestials in the past, but he's more like the no-name celestials. Now, yet again, this probably brings in, what do you mean by that? Well, the celestial race is different, okay? You have basically, there are different levels amongst the celestial races. You have basically like the no-name celestial that no one really ever cares about, no one pays attention to. Then, of course, you have the kind of like a mid-tier, the named celestials who just aren't as powerful as others. And then you have, of course, the named celestials who stand at the top, you know, like Eris and the Judge and stuff like that. So, Thor, Old King Thor with the Phoenix, or sorry, with the Odin Force, clearly was still not as powerful as Galactus, even though, like I said, once he obtained the Phoenix Force was a different story. Now, the reason why I said the Phoenix Force was actually, there was only 2 times that they actually fought, or the Galactus face off against the Phoenix Force, but neither one of them actually had a winner, though it was kind of blatantly shown that the Phoenix Force is actually above him. And the reason why that is perfect, like I said, Old King Thor with the Phoenix Force having that power puts him above Galactus, and he also faced off against the Doom with the Spirit of Vengeance and the Star Brand all at once. So you could definitely make the argument that would actually put him more on that above, like he'd really be like the mid tier to possibly even almost up there with the high tier amongst Celestials, such as Eris and the Judge. He would possibly be in that level. But I think I still would have to give the winner to Rune King Thor. And I know what you're probably thinking, what? But if the Starbrain had enough power to destroy it, Beyonder wouldn't that put him above it? Yes, in a sense you can make that argument, but it was actually kind of teased that the ones who sit above in shadow were Beyonders themselves in Loki's The Last Days on Earth. So if you really wanted to say that, then that would mean, yeah, Starbrand had enough power to defeat one, along with the power to stalemate Galactus and stuff like that. But like I said, that would still only put Old King Thor, even with the Phoenix Force, that would still only put him at a, you know, like I said, in between like the low to mid level Celestials, while while Rune King Thor, like I said, would be more of the mid to high tier amongst the Celestials. Like I said, I don't really usually use the whole Loki's Last Days thing to kind of put the Beyonders in that situation, just because it wasn't fully confirmed. It was really more kind of headcanon amongst the fans, and it was kind of teased at it, but it was never fully confirmed. So I don't really use that, but that would still mean, like I said, you're talking about the ones that sit above in shadow, who, like I said, would have been feasting on Odin's powers for thousands of years. Every single Ragnarok cycle for thousands of years. So that would make them leagues, and I mean leagues above Odin and Galactus. And like I said, Thor managed to defeat them literally with one, you know, just one swing of the axe, plus destroying the world tree on top of that. So just with the feats that Thor managed to do within those few pages, just far outweighs what Old King Thor, even with the Phoenix Force, is able to do. So just by using that type of scaling, I would still have to put give the win to Rune King Thor. I'm sure that might anger a few people, but still, Rune King Thor takes the win, no matter what. Alright, you guys, I really hope you enjoyed the video. If you want me to do more comic book versus battles in the future, I will be happy to, especially if it involves Thor, because, you know, Thor, that's my guy. But, yeah, seriously, though, if you enjoyed it, like, comment, and subscribe. Tell me who you guys want to do more. Tell me in the comments if you disagree or if you agree with me even. Just let me know how you guys feel, and I'll make another video soon, and I'll see you next time, you guys. Peace.